Hey, what's up everyone? So in this short course, we are going to take a look at Next.js, and Next.js is simply a React framework. So I'll expect you to have some basics working with React, so you know what state is, what props are, and so on. And in this video, we are going to cover the core concepts of Next.js. That includes server-side rendering, static site generation. We are going to take a look at the routing system in Next.js and how to style Next.js applications and some other concepts. Also, we will be using a headless CMS, where we will be using it to upload our content, and also we'll be working on a simple blog site. So we'll take a look at the application in the next episode, so that you get a feeling of what we'll be doing in this particular course. And yeah, that is it. If you like the content in this particular course, please remember to give a thumbs up and also support my channel by subscribing. I'm trying to grow the channel right here. Also, it's worth noting that this course is a compilation of my Next.js series here on YouTube. So if you wish to watch it in form of a series, I'll also leave a link at the description section below. Hey, what's up everyone? So this video marks the beginning of a new course in which we are going to take a look at Next.js. So Next.js is simply a React framework, and many developers have loved what Next.js provides. It has very cool features like image optimization. It has different ways of fetching data, like server-side generation, server-side rendering, incremental static regeneration, and we also have static generation. And all these ways of fetching data make Next site to be SEO friendly and rank higher on Google. So we'll be seeing examples of this, and we'll be also taking a look at other features which Next.js provide. Now in this video, I want us to take a look at the demo of the application that we are going to work on. So we are going to work on a simple blog site. So right here is the blog site. We can explore it. At the top we have the navbar. So we have a logo, we have some links on this side, and then a list of the posts. And this is just like a summary or cards. And you can see that we have the title, the summary of our post, when it was added, and optionally we can include a thumbnail. And then down here we just have the footer. So at the moment I only have two posts, and we can click on this one to get more details about it. So when I click on it, you'll see it loads more details about it, and we don't have much on this one. So let's go back and we can click on this one. And when we click on this one, you'll see that it has some code snippet. So I'll show you how you can create this and give it a theme using highlight.js. And then you can have the content down here. You can include headings, you can make text bold and include maybe a list of stuff. You can include images if you want, and we'll be seeing how we can do this. So as you can see, this is a very simple site, but it will help you to run everything that you need to know about Next.js, so that you can start creating your dream application using Next.js, and your application will obviously rank higher on Google. So this is like the front end part of it. But how do we add this data? So we need some form of backend. So I didn't want to waste a lot of time when creating APIs from scratch. Therefore, I made use of what we call a headless CMS. And a good example of a headless CMS is Contentful. And this is what we are going to use in this particular course. So this will help us to get the backend up and running very fast, because it is a content management system which will allow us to model the data, add the data, and we can point to APIs that Contentful provide. And we also have another headless CMS, very popular one, called Strappy. So in this case, we are not going to use Strappy, although it's very similar to Contentful. The reason why I choose Contentful over Strappy is because with Strappy, you'll have to like self-host the backend or the Strappy application. So you'll need to host it on Heroku and find a way to like manage the images by yourself. So I didn't want to waste a lot of time on the backend I wanted us to focus on Next.js. So Contentful, on the other hand, we don't have to host it again. We'll just be using some API keys to access our data, okay? We can try to add a blog post using Contentful so that you see how it works behind the scene. So right here, I will, the session expired. Let me reload the application. And I think I need to log in again, so I'll go ahead and log in. So once I am logged in, this is now how it looks. We have different tabs to model the data, to add content, to add media, and some other settings. And then you can see we have 3 posts right here. One of this one is the code snippet that we saw. I'll show you why it's separate like this. And let's just add an entry and you'll see how it works. So I'll add to Chaoo blog, that is like the content model, and let's have man stack tut, okay, like a tutorial for the man stack. And you can see here we have what we call a slug. It is created from the name here and it is unique, so we will be using it as an ID in our next application. And then now right here we can have a summary, just a tut, just anything, just show you how this is working. We can add a thumbnail. So I have already uploaded a media for the thumbnail, so I'll add from the existing media, and I'll go with this one right here. I'll select it and it is added right there. And then now down here you can add rich text. So with the rich text, that means that you can add bold, italics, and all these good stuff, okay? So let's say some rich text, okay? And with these I can highlight these, make this bold. You can highlight another one, you can make it italic and underlined, and so on and so forth. And then down here you can have one, and you can create a bullet list or something, okay? And then two, and so on and so forth. So you can see why this is awesome, okay? And now I can come right here and publish. Once I publish and come to the content, you'll see that now we have this man stack tut. And when I come now to localhost, we don't have it yet, but when I refresh, you'll see that it will be added. Now we have man stack tut, just a tut. And I think we added a thumbnail, which is not showing yet. Yeah, there we go. So there's the thumbnail, and when you click on it, you can get to more details about it. And once I click, there we go. So we have it like that. This is supposed to be an image. I have through internet or something. And then now right here we have the slug, which is auto-generated from our title. So we'll be seeing how we can set up Contentful and make our site to work like this. And we'll be hosting it on Vercel. So Vercel is the company that also created Next.js, and also it provide free hosting and also premium hosting for Next.js applications. And in case you're new here, my name is Charles. I'm a JavaScript developer and I create content around JavaScript, CSS, Node.js, React. And if you are interested in such kind of content, you can obviously stalk my YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. Also, you can support me by joining as a member only at $0.99, okay? And then you can stalk my other sites, stalk my website. You can buy me a coffee via PayPal. You can stalk my courses. And if you wish to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via Twitter. Also, I highly recommend that you join my Discord server. So far, we are more than 70 members, so you will not be alone right here. Come, greet us, interact with us, ask questions, provide content, and showcase your project. You can also do video suggestion and so on, okay? So yeah, that is it for this video, and in the next video, we'll start taking a look at Next.js. Hey, what's up everyone? So in the last episode, we were able to see the demo of the application that we'll be working on in this entire course. And in this episode, I want us to get started with Next.js. But before we get started with the Next.js, I think it's good we understand why many developers are loving Next.js, why is it becoming so popular, and so on. And the first main reason is the flexibility in rendering, and some of these methods that Next.js provide to render the data makes it fast and better for SEO. And the first method for like rendering the data in Next.js is what we call client rendering. And client rendering is the normal way of fetching data in React, where you make use of the use effect and maybe Axios to fetch the data from the server. So in this way of fetching the data, this is usually a bit slow and also a bit bad for SEO, because the browser usually makes two requests and also require like two responses before you can fully see the page. So what happens is that when the page loads the first time, and this is like the first response from the server, you will see the layout and any like static HTML, but you won't be able to see any data that needs to be fetched. So what the browser does is that it will download the JavaScript and request for the data, and then the backend will respond with the data or an error. In this case, I'm assuming it will respond with the data. Once it responds with the data, now that is like the second response. Now the browser will use that data to generate the HTML for the data, and then now you can like see the page or the data. So during the request, you'll initially see a loader or even a blank page if there is no loader set by the developer. Okay, so these require two responses from the server. The first one is to load the HTML and also to load the JavaScript for it to request the data. And then the second one is the response of the data, and then it can now inject the data into the HTML or generate the HTML, and now you will be able to like see the page. Okay, and that is like bad for SEO, because when web crawlers visit the page, the first thing that they'll be able to see is just a blank page or the static HTML that is already there. That might be just be the navbar, and that is not good for SEO. Okay, and also it's a bit slow because there's so much work being done by the browser. Okay, while pre-rendering on the server, this is now like the option that Next.js provides. We have what we call static generation and server-side rendering. And with static generation, this is like the recommended way of fetching data in Next.js. And what happens in static generation, the HTML is generated at build time, and it is generated on the server. So this is not the browser generating the HTML, this is the server generating the HTML. So what happens, the moment that you are like deploying your application, that is the moment where all the data that you need in the application will be fetched. That is the moment where all the HTML will be created, and you'll deploy all the data and the HTML needed to load the pages. And once the user visits the page, they'll not be making any other requests to the server. They'll just download the HTML that already exists, and this HTML already has all the data. So that is actually very fast, okay, and very good for SEO. This is like the best option when it comes to SEO and speed. Okay, but on the other hand, we also have server-side rendering, because consider an option where you need to like update the data. If you are using static generation and you want to update your data, you will need to build your application again and deploy the changes. So that is not good for a very dynamic site like Facebook or Twitter, but it is good for things like blogs. Okay, but with server-side rendering, the pages are generated at request time. When you visit a page like this one, that moment is the moment where all the HTML and the JavaScript will be loaded, the data will be fetched, and you'll get only one response from the server with all the HTML. So whichever response you'll get, you won't need to make another one to fetch the data. Whatever you'll get is all the HTML already loaded, and you'll be able to see everything. So this is actually like a bit slow than static generation, but it is faster than client rendering, because this is done on the server, so there is less work on the browser. Okay, and it is also way better for SEO than client rendering. So if this doesn't make sense right now, we'll be seeing examples as we proceed with the course, and hopefully everything will make sense. And then we have this incremental static regeneration. This is when you want to make your static generation to be a bit dynamic, so that when you make changes on the data, then Next.js will automatically like rebuild your application and update the data, and therefore that page will now be reusable to any other user that will be visiting without making any further request. So we will also be implementing this on our blog so that you see what it does and what it means. So this is like the main reason why Next.js is becoming so popular, and there are other reasons, obviously. Right here there is built-in routing system, so you don't need to use your own React router or anything. There is already a built-in system which is very easy to use, and then there is support for CSS and CSS, so you won't need to do any other configuration. They are automatically done for you. The same goes for TypeScript support and image optimization. And then now down here we have other reasons like API routes. You can be able to create APIs using Next.js to serve your front end, and then there is better for performance out of the box, so you don't need to worry about this. You won't need to do anything. There is what we call code splitting and minified code. A good example, when you load a page like this one, Next.js will only load the data for this page. It won't load the entire site. It will only load the data for this page, and that is what we call code splitting, which is very fast and good for performance. And then we have an active community around Next.js, and therefore if you have any questions, you'll always find someone out there on the web, and you can always reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. So check for links at the description section below. And yeah, this is some of the reasons why Next.js is becoming so popular, and once you are used to them, it's actually so fun to work with Next.js. Okay, now I don't want to make this video to be so long, but we can go ahead and create our first Next.js app, and then we'll proceed from there on the next episode. So to create a Next.js app, it's so easy. I'm in next.js.org at docs, and then getting started. So right here, you just need to run this command right here. So I'll copy this command, and if you're using TypeScript, you'll need to do this. But for now, if you're getting started, I recommend you just go with this one, and then later on you can learn TypeScript and make use of it on Next.js. So now I'll come right here, and this is a folder where I want to create our app. So I'll click on the path here on Windows, and I'll type cmd to open the command prompt or the terminal on that path. Now right here, I can just paste that command and hit enter. Once I do that, this should process. There we go. We give our application a name. I'll call it next-contentful -blog. Actually, I'll include a T right here, content. Just like that, I hit enter. And then it will install our next app. So once it's done, you can open it on your favorite code editor. In this case, I'm using VS Code. So I'll learn code and a period or a full stop or a dot and hit enter. So it will open that code on Visual Studio Code. And actually, it will open it in a folder like this. So if you need to open that actual folder, you can cd into this name of the folder or directory. So right here, I'll paste it, so you can hit enter. Okay, but for now I can still work with this one. So let's go ahead. I'll click trust this from all, and here are my files. So this is now the next app, and we can go through what we have here before we end the video. First of all, it's Node modules. Remember, Next.js is a React framework, so you need Node.js to work with Next.js. Okay, and then now we have right here a folder called pages, and this pages is the one that creates our routing system. So basically, each file on these pages is usually a route, okay, or a different page, okay, apart from app.js right here. So index.js, this is usually the home page, and here we have API. This is now for the API routes and stuff, so you don't need to worry about that for now. We won't be using it, but in future I might create a video on the same. So we will explore this routing system on the next video. So let's just ignore it for now. Then we have the public folder. This way you can include all your assets like images and so on. And then now right here we have styles. So Next.js supports what we call CSS modules. So you can create a CSS file for each page right here. And then we can have different ways to style. Okay, you can have CSS and CSS, and we'll be talking about styles later on as well. And then now we have git ignore, next config, and then some package.json to track our version for our different dependencies. So we will explore further these files as we proceed with the course. So for now, that's it for this video, and I'll be seeing you on the next one, where we will explore Next.js routing system. So in the last episode, we were able to create our first Next.js app, and also we saw some reasons why we actually need Next.js. So in this episode, we'll start exploring some of those features, and I want us to take a look at this pages folder. So this pages folder is very unique in Next.js because it is the one that provides the inbuilt routing system that comes with Next.js. So let us take a look at what we already have in this particular pages folder. The first thing that you'll see is the API folder. And with the Next.js, you can be able to create API routes inside this API folder. And when I look at this hello.js, you'll see that we can be able to create a route handler and so on, and return something to the client. So in this particular course, we'll be using Contentful for all our backend data. So for now, we'll not take a look at our APIs folder. So I'll just ignore it for now. And then we have underscore app.js. And in underscore app.js, this is like the root of the application. And we don't usually do much here. All we do is like include the global CSS. You can also include the global state and also include a layout which will be persistent in all the pages. And all we have here is a function. The component here represent each page that we'll be creating, and then the page props represent the initial props that Next.js will provide by default. So we don't need to do anything here for now. So I'll also cancel this. And then let's take a look at index.js. Now index.js is now like the home page of our application, and when we run the application, this is the first page that we will see. And when you look at it, we are importing a head component from a head, image component from image. These are provided by Next, and image here is good for optimizing the images, and then the head component is very awesome for SEO. We can include the title, custom meta tags, and also some links. For example, right here we have a link to the favicon, and this favicon is coming from the public folder. So when you include assets here, you can easily load them anywhere in the application. And we can be able to customize each page to have its own head, to have its own title and meta tags, which is really awesome for SEO. And then we have just some content which comes by default in Next.js, and we can run this application and see what we have at the moment. So to run this application, it's so easy. You need to go to your terminal. You can open VS Code terminal if you want, and make sure that you are inside the application folder, okay? And then right here you can now run npm run dev, and this will start a script which is already in package.json file. So if I click package.json, we have this script right here, dev, which will run next dev, and that is what will be executed when we run this command. So when I hit enter, this should start our application at localhost 3000. It has already started and compiled successfully, so I can copy this link and go to the browser and then paste it and hit enter. And now you'll see that this is what we currently have. If we inspect this, you'll see that at the head here, we have the meta tags, create next app, the title, and so on. And these are provided by our head component right here. So we will be creating our own page and adding a head component, and then we'll be including our own title and meta tag, and that will be really powerful because that doesn't come with the React by default, okay? So now how do we create different pages in Next.js? So when I add a new file in pages right here, and I can call it about and then .js. Now this about.js can be a functional component. So I can say about, and then right here, let's include a h2, and we can say about. Now, the cool thing with the Next.js is that when you include any file in this particular pages folder, that file automatically becomes a route or a page, okay? So now this is now the about page. It will display a different screen altogether. And how do we access it? So how we access that page is by coming right here and including a slash about. And then when we visit that page, we should load that particular component or page, and there we go. Now, the cool thing, when you look at the head right now, we don't have the title and some other custom meta tags, and we can include them using that head component which Next.js provide. So what I can do, I can come to index.js and I can copy these head component, and then I'll come to about, and let's actually wrap everything here inside a React fragment. So I can include a React fragment just like this. Let me move this one in here and maybe remove that. And then now I can include a head just before anything else, and then I save. Now right here I can say about page. So let me replace all this with about page. Notice how I also like edited this, and then I'll save that. And now when I come to the browser, head is not defined, so we need to import head from Next. So right here, let's do that. So I'll say import a head, and this will come from Next. Let's copy this one. I'll paste it. So this is the right way to import that head component. And now when I save, that error should disappear, and it disappeared. And the cool thing now is that let me refresh. We should be having now the title here and so on. So when I load this one, now you see we have the title, about page, we have the meta tag, and you can include other meta tags to customize this page's SEO. So this is one of the reasons why Next is so awesome when it comes to SEO and so on. Okay, now this index.js, as I told you, is a home page. So whenever you visit these without slash anything, you are visiting the home page. And another cool thing is that we can include folders right here. So if I add a folder, I can say about, I hit enter, and then I can take this file and move it to the about folder. So now inside the about folder, we have the about.js. Now to load this about.js, we need to go to stroke about and then stroke about again for us to get to it. So now when I come back, and if we go to stroke about, we will get a 404 error. It will say that it didn't find anything, therefore that will be an error, and you can see that. So we need to go to stroke about. Now this is the folder, and then we need to specify the file. So I'll say stroke about, and then when I hit enter, you'll see that now we can load that file. Now if you want to just go to stroke about just like this, what you can do is that you can include an index.js file right here. So I can say index.js, and then now I'll take the content of the about. So I'll copy everything that we have here, and then in index.js I can paste it here. And then for the about here, let's rename everything. Let's say we want to include about for different people, maybe in our company, and one of that person is me. So I'll say Chaoo.js, and then inside the component I will replace about with a Chaoo. So I can use Control D to select all the abouts in the page, and I'll say Chaoo. So I'll save that, and then in index.js right here, which is inside our about folder, I'll also save it. Now the cool thing is that when we go to our base URL stroke about, we will load this index.js by default. So if I come right here to the about, if I hit enter, it will load that index.js. So we get about. Okay, and now you can say that this is the the home page for the about or something. Now how do we load a Chaoo.js right here? How we load Chaoo.js is we say about, and then we say stroke Chaoo, and then when I hit enter, that will load a Chaoo page, and there we go. Okay, and now when you look at our title, you see now it's Chaoo page and it's no longer the about page. So this is so powerful because this is done out of the box. You don't have to configure anything, unlike in React where you need to use something like a React router DOM. And now how do we link pages? So I can come to index.js and let's add a link to go to Chaoo. So how we can do that, we can include a link component which is provided by Next. So I click on this one, and right here I can say Chaoo. So when we click this, it will go to the Chaoo page, and therefore we can include a href. I'll include a string, and I can say stroke about, and then stroke Chaoo, and this will load now our Chaoo page right here. So I'll save that, and let's see what we have. So now when we go to about, so I'll remove this one, hit enter, we go to about. Now we have this link right here. When I click on it, it will take us to Chaoo. So when I click on this one, it takes us to Chaoo, and that is how you can like add links between pages. We have this link component which Next.js provide by default, and we also have a hook which is called the use router hook. Okay, and we can make use of that use router hook to take someone to a page or something. So right here we can like import the use router hook. So I'll say import use router, and this will come from next/router. And for this hook we need to like initialize it, so we can say const router will be equal to use router, and we invoke it. Okay, now we can make use of this router to like take someone to a different page. So let's say we want to still take the user here to Chaoo. This time round I can include a button, so I'll say button, and I'll say Chaoo. Now for this button, for us to go here, we will use an onClick event, and then in this onClick I can use an arrow function, and I can call router dot push, and then inside this push we can include the path. So I can say stroke about, and then stroke Chaoo. So this will still work. This is like an alternative. So when I save that, I can come back to the about page. So I'll go to about, and now we have two things. We have this one, and we have a button. So when I click the button, it should still take us to Chaoo. So I click the button, and there we go. So you have two options when it comes to like linking the pages. You can make use of the use router, or you can make use of the link component. And it's obvious that the link right here is easier to use, but now the router object here comes in handy when you have a function and you don't want to include any JSX, so you can just call it and push the user to that specific page. And it also have some other awesome methods like the back method, which will take us back to the previous page, and some other cool stuff. So you can check the use router hook on the documentation to learn more about it. So for now, let's like test the back method. So I can say back, and then now right here we don't need to include anything. I think we just need to invoke it, and then now right here I can just say back. Okay, and what this will do is that it will take us back to the previous page which we came from. So I'll save this one, and to begin with, let's start by going to the home page. So this is like the home page right there, and then now let's visit the about page. And once we are at the about page, when we click back, we should go back to the home page. So I click back, and we go back to the home page. So you see it has very awesome methods which we can make use of to navigate through the application. Now, so far so good. And what I want to show you next is about what we call the dynamic routes. So we can use dynamic routes to like load a specific page depending on the ID of the request. So what I'll do, inside the pages folder, I can add a new folder called post, and then inside the post folder I can add a new file. So we'll be having like blog posts, right? So inside the post folder we can include a file which will help us to load the details of each blog post. So right here I can include like square brackets, and then right here you can pass the ID of each blog post, and then you end with .js. So this is like the format. Okay, and then when I hit enter, you can create the post component right here. So I'll use a shortcut here and then call it post, and now right here I can include, let's start with the React fragments. In here I can include a h2, and okay, h2 like that, and I can say post details, and then I'll save that. Okay, now this will be like details for each blog post which we want to like visit. Now, how do we like access it using our routing system? So we are at homepage right now. So if we visit post, I think we should get an error, a 404 error. So if we say just post, that should give us an error. So we have 404, the page was not found. So for us to load a specific post from here, we need to include a parameter or the ID of that post. So I can say stroke, let the ID be just a random number, and I hit enter. So now that we load that particular page, and as you can see, now we have post details, and all we did, we included this stroke and then a random number, and now this random number will be used as the ID, and you can use that ID to load details from the database or from the API for a specific post, okay? And you can be able to access that ID from this particular page. So you can either use the use router hook to access the ID, or you through the methods that Next.js provides, that is getStaticProps, get server-side props, you can also be able to access the ID. For now, let's try to make use of the use router to access the ID. So if I go to the routing here, dynamic routes, you'll see that you just import use router, and then now right here you can be able to use router.query to get the ID. So I'll just copy this, and then I'll come back right here and I'll paste it just before the return statement, and right here I'll get the ID, and we need to import use router from next router. So let's import it right here, and now we invoke it like this, and we can be able to access the ID like this. So right here, if I include full colon, and then let's load the ID and show it on the UI like that, okay? So if I come back and go to our localhost right here, you'll see that we can be able to load that ID. Now you can use this ID to fetch data and so on. Maybe you can use effect, or you can do anything really, okay? And now right here, I can also change the ID. Maybe it's a random string. When I hit enter, you'll see that we get a random string right here. Okay, that is really powerful. So what we will be doing, we will be including a slug. So a slug is something that will be coming from the title, so something like React -and -shopping cart for a specific post details, and therefore we'll be able to load it like this. So it's not a must you name this as ID, so you can replace it with a slug or any other variable that will make sense. And then now right here we will have to destructure slug from router.query. So I'll destructure slug, and then right here we can load the slug. So this will still work, okay? So I'll save that, and when we come back right here, you see it is still work. And when we remove the cart and hit enter, it should now remove the cart from here. So this is so awesome, and we'll be using that slug to get a specific post, and we'll see how we will do that. So I think this video is now long enough, and just to summarize, every file that you include in the pages folder becomes a route, okay? And that will become a different page. You can access it by using stroke the name of that page, and if it's inside a folder, you say stroke the name of the folder and then stroke the name of the file. Not unless it's just an index file like this, you'll just include stroke the name of the folder, and then it will automatically load index.js inside that particular folder. And how you link between different pages, you can use the link. You can use the link component from Next.js, or you can make use of the use router hook from React router. So those are the two main options that Next.js provides. So that is it for this video. And in the next video, what we will do, we will create a layout for our blog. We will create the navbar, the footer, and then the content section, and we'll see how we can use the styles folder right here to include some styles and other options that we can use to style our Next.js application. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you support my content by subscribing, like the video. It really helps to boost it. And also you can join the channel as a member at just 49 cents, and then you'll get cool badges, and they'll appear when you leave a comment. And this is just a way to support my content, okay? I'm trying to grow this channel, and I know with your help we can move very far. And that's it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to take a look at the routing system in Next.js, and we explored our pages folder right here. Now in this episode, I want us to create the layout of our blog, and for that we'll be needing to style some components, and therefore we'll also like explore this styles folder. So let's take a look at what is inside the styles folder. And the first thing that you'll see is the globals.css file. And this globals.css file will include all the global styles for our application. And this file is being imported inside the that is app.js file right here. And app.js is like the root of our application. So you can see this is where we are importing the globals.css file. And the other file that we have here is home.module.css. So Next.js allows you to use CSS modules. And what we mean by CSS modules is that you can add a CSS file for like each page or each component, and those styles will only be applied to that particular page or component. Okay, so for example, this home.module.css is being imported in index.js. So this is where we are importing it, and as you can see, we are importing styles right here from that particular home.module.css file. And then how we are adding class names is by using this styles object right here. So we say class name is equals to, we use this curly brackets, and then we say styles.container. Now this will apply the container class to this div, and then that container class, I'm sure it has some styling here. It has some stylings here. So that is how like the CSS modules work. And there are many other ways in which you can style your Next.js app. You can actually like make use of the SCSS or SAS, and all you need to do is to install SAS, and you'll not do any further configuration. You'll just change the extension here to something like home.module.scss. So when using CSS modules, you must include this extension right here, module.css, and then the name of the file like there. So when styling our blog, we will not be using SAS, we will not be using CSS modules. What we will be using is what we call styled JSX. And you can use any method that you want to style your blog. You can use material UI, you can use tailwind CSS, you can use styled components. All those various ways in which you can style your application in React. You can as well use them in Next.js. So in this case, I'll just do some cleanup. So I'll delete the import for the CSS here. I'll delete the image. I can let the head stay, but what I'll do, I'll also like delete the content right here. So I want to do some cleanup before we even proceed. And right here, I can just include a h2 as a placeholder to know which is our home page. And at the home page is where we'll be having our blog list. So let me add blog list right there and save that. And maybe I can customize the head here. You can say Chaoo blog. And then I'll come to the meta tag, and you can say whichever description that you want. So I'll also repeat this to be Chaoo blog, and that will be it for this index.js for now. And since we are not using CSS modules, I'll also delete this home.module.css. Let's also do some cleanup at our pages folder. We'll not be having any about sections in our blog, so I'll delete the about here, and then we'll be making use of this post later on. Now let us create our navbar and also our footer and layout our page. So how we will do that is that we can be able to add React components, which we don't want them to be like pages. We want them to be just components. So how you can do that, you can create a new folder. You can give it a name, so components make sense. And then inside this components folder, I'll create a new file called layout. So I'll say layout.jsx. And then I'll create another file called navbar.jsx, and I'll create another one called footer.jsx. Okay, and then let's start with the layout. So at the layout here, I can use a shortcut here to create a component. I'll call it layout, and in here we can have a div, and I'll give it a class name of container. So I'll say class name be equal to container, and inside this div is where we will be having our navbar, our footer, and the content. So let's create like the components for the navbar and for the footer. So I'll say sfc, and this will be the navbar, and for now let us just return a navbar here just as a placeholder. I'll save that. Let's go to the footer. I'll say sfc. So by the way, this shortcut that I'm using here is from Simple React Snippets extension. So let me show you the snippet in a minute, so that if you want to use it, you can as well use it. Okay. So at the extensions, I have several extensions here, and the one that I'm using for that shortcut is this one, Simple React Snippets. Okay. So you can as well install it if you want, and then you'll like quickly get started with your component. Now in the layout, the first thing that we will have right here is the navbar. So I'll say navbar like that, and then we will have the content, and then we'll have the footer. So let me first add the footer, and then for the content will be our pages. So first of all, let's wrap our everything in the application with this layout, and I'll show you how the content will come along. So inside the pages folder, I'll go to app.js, and then I'll wrap this component right here with that layout. Okay, right here I'll say layout. Hopefully I'll get the auto import, and then I'll do like that, and then I'll hit enter, and then I'll wrap the component here inside the layout, and then I'll save. So now how should we like add this component to be our content? So this will now be like the child inside our layout. So in the layout right here, we can destructure children from here. So I'll say children, and then now inside here we can have like a div, and whatever will display in here is our children. And now these children is the different pages in our application. And then now right here I can give this a class name of content. So far, let's see what we have. Okay, so we should have the navbar at the top, we should have the content, and then we should have the footer. So let's visit our application, and we seem to be having an error. Footer is not defined. We should import footer. So let's import footer right here from footer, and then I'll save now. Hopefully we don't have any other error. Styles is not defined. So this is inside the index.js home component. So what we should do is to go to index.js and remove this class name, and yeah, I'll save again. Let's see if we have any other error, and we don't have any other error. So this is what now we currently have. We have the navbar at the top, we have the blog list right here. Now these will be our different pages, and then we have the footer. So if we try to visit like a specific post, we should go to post stroke any ID. We should have the same layout. Okay, so we should have navbar, then the details, then the footer. So navbar is consistent, we have the page there, and then the footer. So this is like now our layout of the blog. So now we can like style this layout using styled JSX. So inside the layout, how do we add styles using styled JSX? So before this closing tag, the one that we have at the high level, we can like hit enter, and right here we can add a style tag, and this style tag we can include an attribute JSX, and now we can like include CSS styles in here, and this is how we do it. We use the curly brackets, and then we use the backticks, and now you can write your normal CSS inside these backticks. Okay, for example, we will select the container, so I'll say .container, and we will give it a min height, so I'll say min hyphen height, and I'll calculate the height right here using the calc function in CSS. So I'll say calc, and I'll say let it be 100 VH minus 190 px. So this 190 px will both be the height of the navbar and the height of the footer. Let us give it a max width of 750 px, and let us give it a padding around it of 30 px, and also let us give it a margin of outer. So the margin will like center this container. Okay, so margin of outer. So what will happen is that let me save to like outer format. So what will happen is that these styles will be applied to our container class right here, and they will only be applied in this particular file. So if you have another container outside this file, these styles will not be applied. They are only specific for this particular component. Okay, and this is like a CSS in JavaScript, because as you can see, we are inside the JSX file or a JavaScript file, and we are able to add the styles. So if I save this, you should see that we have a limited width and also the padding, and it's at the center. So I'll save that, and then let's see what we have. Now you can see it moved right here. We are no longer like at the very edge. Now let us tell the navbar. So I'll go to the navbar component, and let us start by adding the content for the navbar. So first things first, we can add a nav element, and inside this nav element we can have a h2, and this h2 will be having a link, and this link is from Next. So let's import it, and right here I can say Chaoo blog, or you can include a logo if you want. Let us have a href, and I'll set it to be home. Okay, so when I click Chaoo blog, it will take us to home. And for this navbar, I'll have a class name of nav. And after this one, let us have the second thing. I can have a div. And right here, you can include like links for the left side of the navbar. Let me just include a link to like my portfolio. So I'll say an A. So you can also like use A tags. So I'll use an A. And for this A, I'll say my portfolio, and this can have several attributes. So we can have href, and I can include the link to my portfolio, which is https :// and then Chaoo Charles .dev. So you should actually check out my portfolio, and if you like it, I also have a full course on the same. Okay, so you can check that one out, and I'll leave a link at the description section below for the course. And then now right here I can target, I want it to open on a new page, so I'll target underscore blank, and then now right here I can have rel to be equal to no referrer. Otherwise these will throw an error, and when we get to deploying our application, it won't like actually run because of this error. So we have to like include that for security reasons. I think it's spelled that way. So this is like the layout of our navbar, the heading where we have the logo, and then a link at the left. So you can include as many links as you want, but I don't want to focus too much on that. Now let's style this one. So let me first save to auto format. So before closing this fragment, we can add our style right here, style, and then the JSX attribute, and we close it like that. And now we can include the curly brackets and also the backticks. And now in here we can add the styles. So I'll target the nav class, which is this one, and in here we can be able to add the different styles. So first of all, I'll give it a background. So we can say background to be this color, so that is dark color. And then let's change the color now to white. Let's add a height of 70px. Let us add a display of flex. Add a justify hyphen content to be space between. space hyphen between, and then we will add align items at the center. To be the center, and finally I can like add a padding, so I'll say padding to be 0 and 20 px. Let's see what we have so far. So I'll save that. Hopefully everything is correct, the spelling, and let's see what we have. And this is now what we have. We have the navbar right here, and then the details right here. These styles are supposed to be for the content, so I'll just change the class name here to content. So I'll say content, and actually remove this class name. I won't be using it. So I'll save that, and let's see what we have. Yeah, I want it to be this way, this to stretch all the way, and then we have our content like this. Okay, now we can style the footer here. So I'll go to the footer right here, and let's add some styles. Now for the footer, I'll just add a div right here with the class name of footer. Div class name to be footer, and in the body I'll just add a p tag with all rights reserved. So you can style your footer to be as complex as you want. I just want this one to be simple one, just to have a nice layout going on. Now using styled JSX, we can add a style tag, then JSX, and add the styles right here. I'll select the footer class. I'll give this a height of 120px, and then right here I'll give it a background of this color hash 38, and then I'll give it a color of white, and I'll display flex just to center everything. So I'll align the items to the center, and I will justify the content to the center. So I'll save that, and let's see what we have. So there we have the footer. So this is now our layout. We have the navbar, the content, and then the footer, but you can see that we have a white space down here. So our mean height is not working okay. So let's check it at our layout, and mean height calc. This we should be like having space between this one and this one. I think it's affecting. When we save, that should fix it. And there we go. Now we have a nice layout for our blog. Now in the next episode, we will take a look at Contentful. We will set it up so that we can now be able to fetch data for our blogs and be able to continue with our Next.js application. So I'll see you on the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to create our layout right here. And the next thing that we will do is to list our blog post right here. But for us to list the blog post, we need to actually have the blog post existing somewhere. And for that, we'll be making use of Contentful to model our data, add the blog post, and then we can be able to access those blog posts from our Next.js application. So Contentful is a headless CMS. And what we mean by that is that it provides us with a way of modeling the data and adding the data on the backend, and then we can make use of any front-end framework that you can think of, like Next.js, Vue.js, and so on. So the first thing that you'll need to do is to sign up for an account. So I'll go ahead and sign up for a new account. I'll make use of Google right here because I already have an account with GitHub. So I'll sign up with Google. So once you select the Gmail account that you'll be using, then you can go ahead and fill the remaining details. So for the company, I'll call my company CC for Chaoo Charles, and then I'll I'll go ahead and select the job title here. I'll say other, and then right here I'll select developer and then click sign up. So now it has created my Contentful account here. And one last thing, before starting, help us tailor Contentful for you. So you can go ahead and select whichever field that you want. I'll select blog, and then what is the one reason you signed up to this one. I'll select this one. I decided to use Contentful for a new project. How familiar are you with headless CMS? I'll say moderatory. How familiar are you with structured content? I'll say moderatory, and then I'll just click on start with Contentful. So here we go, and we have like created a Contentful account. CC is the name of the company here, and then blank, I think that is the name of the space. So you don't need to worry about that. So there are these steps which you can like take. This is like a guide, but what I want to do is to just dive into content model. Okay, so in content model, if you have worked with something like MongoDB and Node.js, we usually like create models for our content, and that means that we are just like structuring the data, how it will look, and so on. So we are not like actually adding the data, we are just structuring the data. Okay, and right here, first design the content model. I'll design the content model, and then create the first type of content. I'll create content type. So the name of the content type, I'll call it blog, and then API identifier, let it be blog. Description, I think that can be optional, so I'll go ahead and create, and then define the structure of the content type. So I'll add a field. So we need to add different fields for our content, and what I'll start with here is maybe the title. So I'll click on text, and then I'll go ahead and give it a name. I'll call it title. Let it be a short text. I'll click on create, and right here you can be able to like select settings, and then go to validation, make it required, make it unique, and at settings here we need to make these to represent the entry title. So I'll click on entry title, and then appearance, let it be a single line. So I'll go ahead and confirm. So let's add others. Okay, I'll add a thumbnail, and for the thumbnail it will be a media. So I'll click on media, it will be one file, and let's give it a name, thumbnail. And I'll go ahead, and when I click on create and configure, I think it will give us the settings that we needed. So I'll click on create and configure, and then go to validation. Thumbnail can be optional, so I'll not make it required. And then accept only a specified file size, you can select that. Accept only a specified file type, I need to select this, and make sure that that file type is an image, so we don't want video or audio as a thumbnail. Okay, so the next thing, I can click on appearance, and yeah, that is good enough. So I'll go ahead and confirm. So now we have two. Let's add another one. I'll click on text. I'll call this one slug, and slug will be acting as our unique ID. Let it be short text, it will be generated from the title. I'll click on create and configure. I'll go ahead and click on validation, make it required, unique. Okay, I'll click on slug on the appearance, and then we should generate the slug from the title. So there we go, and I'll click on confirm. So now we have the slug. Let's add a summary. So we can click on text, let it be a longer one, and then we can go ahead and give it a name. This will be summary, and then I'll create and configure, and I'll go to validation, make it required. You can set other stuff, but I won't. Appearance, I'll click on multiple lines, and then I'll like confirm, and then I'll add lastly our content. So I'll click on rich text, so this will be content, and I'll click create and configure. Actually, for consistency, I can start with capital there, create and configure. Now for rich text, you are able to add headings, you are able to link to assets and so on. So I won't like touch on anything here. I'll just go ahead on validation and make it required. You can limit some stuff or do some other settings right here, but I'll only click this one. Appearance will be rich text and I'll confirm. So this is like now the model of our content. We have the title, the thumbnail, the tag, the summary, and the content itself, which is rich text. And as you can see, you can be able to like select multiple options. You can add numbers if you want, dates, location, and so many more. So for now, this will be good enough for our blog, and therefore I'll come right here and save. So once you save, you can go to content right here, and you'll see that we don't have any content, and we can click on add blog and create your first piece of content. We call it an entry, and therefore create and edit an entry. So right here we can be able to add a different stuff now, and the ones that are required are marked in red. So let's say we are creating a next.js blog post. So I'll say next.js tutorial. Right here we will need to add a media, so I'll click on add media and I'll add a new media, and then we give that media a title. I'll say next thumb, so that is like the thumbnail. And then I'll come right here, and you can either drag and drop or you can open the file selector. I'll click on open file selector, and I'll click on select file to upload. You can choose from any place that you want, even from the device, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. So right here I'll click on to choose from the device, and I'll click on this one right here. So I'll like open one, and I'll go ahead and okay, it's uploading. Cannot publish until processing. So it has processed, and I'll publish. Okay, once I publish, first entry published, it can now be fetched via the API. So this is just like the image itself. So I'll like cancel this, then I'll click back here, and now you can see it's already like added here. Okay, so it should be published right there. So far we have added the title, the thumbnail, and you can see the slug is auto generated from the title. Let's have a summary. So I can say this is a Next.js course for beginners, and I can include dot right there. So that is like the summary of the blog post. And then now right here we can add the content that we want. So what I'll do, I'll say this is the content of Next.js tutorial. So from here you can be able to add different stuff. You can add images, you can add some styles like bold, italics, you can add some bullet list, and so on and so forth. So you can like play around with it. This is rich text, and you can be able to even embed some media, even images, and so on. So for now I want to keep this one simple, so I'll go ahead and publish our post. So we have like filled everything, so I'll publish that. So when you go now to content right here, you should be able to see this post right here as published. And now I'll add another post. So now I have added a new entry, and I have called it Next.js tutorial part 2, and then we have Next.js tutorial here. And yeah, so now we have two, and I think these are good enough to get started with. So in the next episode, what we will do, we'll try to get this data from Contentful and list it right here on our Next.js app. So that is it for this episode. You can explore more about Contentful. There is media right here, and so on, and I'll be seeing you on the next episode. So in the last episode, we were able to add data in our Contentful CMS, and in this episode I want us to find a way of getting this data and be able to show it on our UI. So one thing that you need to note is that Contentful already provides us with some methods which we can use to get the data and use it on our next app. So if you come to space right here, space home, then scroll at the very bottom, you will see that we have instructions for each language. When I click on JavaScript, then click on this guide, it will open the documentation of how you can get data from Contentful. And right here, you will see Contentful Content Delivery API is a read-only API for retrieving content from Contentful. So we have what we call Content Delivery API, which Contentful already provide. And when I scroll at the bottom here, you will see the first thing that we will need is to install Contentful. And then down here, we will need to connect to a space, and we will do something like this. We will call Contentful, and then there is a method called create client, and then we will use the space ID and the access token to connect to our Contentful CMS. And then after that, there are methods like get entry to get a single entry, and then there is another one like get entries to get multiple entries. So you can go through the documentation, but I'll be taking you through a step-by-step guide and show you how we will be able to get the data. So let's start by installing Contentful. So right here, I'll come to this one, I'll copy it, and then I'll go to VS Code, and I'll open the terminal, new terminal, and I'll install Contentful. Also make sure that you are inside your Next.js application when installing this. So I'll paste that and hit enter. Now as this installs, we can go ahead and proceed. So what you need to do is to open index.js, and then at the top here, we will import create client, which will help us to like connect to our Contentful CMS. So right here, I'll destructure create client from Contentful. So I think it has already installed. That is why I'm getting a suggestion. So let's confirm that, and yeah, it has already installed. So I'll just close it. And then down here, after this component function, we can come at the very bottom here. This is where I want us to like fetch the data, and we should be exporting a specific function. And there are two main functions that we can make use of. So there is get server-side props, and then the other function is there is get static props. So the difference between these two is that get server-side props is what we call now server-side rendering, SSR, okay? And then get static props, this is what we call server-side generation. So with server-side rendering, this usually builds the page at request time, and then with get static props, this usually builds the page at build time. Now, which one should you use? With get static props, this is very awesome when we have data that doesn't frequently change, like our blog. We don't like change our blog content very frequently. Maybe we do that once a week or twice a month. So this is like the best option when it comes to something like a blog, and it is very good for SEO because at build time, all the pages are generated, and the browser, when it makes a request to the server, it gets a complete page and it doesn't have to make any other request. And that makes it very fast and also good for SEO. And then with get server-side props, this is good when your data is a bit dynamic, when building a site like Facebook or Twitter, where the data keeps changing because of many users and stuff. And with this one, the page is usually generated at request time, and at request time is when you visit that page. When you visit that page, that is the moment when the server will build the page and then send back a response, and the response is the page with the data and the HTML. So it only like provide one response. So we had talked about this when we were like introducing Next.js and stuff, and now this is the point where we can like go into the practical bit of it. So in this case, I'll be exporting a function called getStaticProps. Okay, so now right here, I can go ahead and export a const. It will be an async function. Actually, I won't say const, I'll say export async, and then function, and this function will be get static props. As you can see, they are actually being recommended, two of them. So I'll go with static props and I'll invoke it, and now in here we can fetch the data. So before we fetch the data, we need to connect to our Contentful CMS, and this is how we can do it. So right here I'll say const client will be equal to create a client. So this is what we actually imported right here. So create client, I'll go ahead and invoke it, pass an object, and we should be having two things in here. We should be having the space, and then we should be having access token, and we can get these from Contentful. Okay, so let's go ahead and get them from Contentful. So I'll come to my Contentful. You can go to settings and then go to API keys. You need to click on the space that you are currently using, because you can actually have multiple spaces. So I'll go with this one, and then down here, this is the space ID. So I'll copy that, and then I'll come right here, and I can include it here as a string. And this should be actually be a comma, just like that. I'll also remove this one, and I'll come here, and here is our access token for the content delivery API. So I'll copy that, come here, and include it in a string like that. And now we can be able to make use of this client to fetch the data. But before we do that, it's usually a good practice to include API keys like these in environment variable. So let's actually do that. Okay, it's a good practice. So I'll minimize everything, and then at the root here, I'll create a new file. And in Next.js, it already like pre-configures environment variables for us, and this is the file that we are supposed to create. I'll say .env and then .local, like that. Okay, and then in here I can include a space ID like that, and I'll copy this one. Actually, I'll cut it now. I'll cut it, and then I'll include it here. And then let's have access token right here, access underscore token. And then I'll come right here, I'll highlight that, cut it, and I'll include it here. So I'll save that, and in our index.js, now I can read the keys from the environment variable. So right here I'll say process.env space underscore ID, and then for access token I'll go ahead and say process.env, and then I'll say access underscore token. Now let's use this client to get our data. So right here I'll await the response. So I'll say await client dot, and now we have this method which is already like provided by Contentful, get entries. So I invoke it, and we should provide the content type. So when we come to our Contentful and go to content, so right here you will see that we have content type, and we actually created this and called it blog. So we need to include it because you can be having multiple content types. Okay, so I'll go ahead and right here specify the content type, content underscore type, and I'll use a full colon, and I'll say blog in small caps. So if your name had like 2 words, for example, let's say I called it Chaoo blog, now the content type here will be Chaoo and then blog. Okay, so or you can actually like check here. So I'll go ahead and remove this, and now this will return our a response which will be having our data. So I can store that response in a constant. So I'll say const res is equals await client.get entries, and then this one. Now, in case if you wondered if you are using like a different way of fetching the data, you can still do it. Like if you are using Axios, you can come right here and say await axios.get, and then you specify the API endpoint, and then you'll get your response. So it is not a big difference. Okay, so what you should note is that you should be using like a function like this, getStaticProps, or you can use get server-side props. And if you want to still use client rendering, where you make use of a use effect and fetch the data, you can still do that. But the point of using Next.js is to make use of these methods which it provides. So I'll go ahead and cancel this one. Now, this getStaticProps should return an object, and this object is the props object. And now we can do that. It expects us to return it. So down here, you can return like that, and it expects us to return a props object. And now this props object will be having our response. So we can actually say let posts be our response, okay? And when we do that, now these posts will be available in our props. So we can come right here and we can receive our props, and we can be able to log it to the console and see what we have. So I'll say props dot posts. Actually, I should call console.log props.post. Maybe I can include a string posts full colon, okay, comma, and I'll save that. Okay, so for some reason these environment variables are not being read from our .env.local file right here. So for now I'll take back the credentials right here to how we had them, and once I resolve the issue, I'll let you know. So let's take them back right here, just the way they were, and we can resolve the .env file later on. But if yours is working, well and good. So I'll return them like that, and let's see if we can actually get the data. So I'll save that and then go back to the browser. Let me refresh, and now we are able to get our data. And when I expand this, you'll see that we have several stuff. But when you expand items right here, you'll get an array of our data. Let's expand this one, and you'll see one of it is Next.js tutorial part 2, and the other one is Next.js tutorial. So we are actually being able to get our data, and the array of our data is available in the items right here. So for us to get that array, we can just come down here, and instead of just saying res, we can say res.items. And now what we will get in our posts right here from props is that array of data. So I'll come back, and once we refresh here, we should only see an array of our data, and there we go, we have an array of our data. Now this is very cool because we can now be able to map through the data and show it on the UI. So right here, what I'll do, I'll destructure posts, and then in the next episode we will go ahead and map through the data and show it on the UI. So I'll see you on the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to fetch our data from Contentful, and we were able to log the data at the console right here. Now in this episode, I want us to take this data and be able to map through it and show it on our UI. So I'll just come back to the code editor, and in the last episode we were able to make use of this function getStaticProps to get the data from Contentful and add it to our props, and then we can be able to access it via props and log it to the console or show it on the UI. So with the time, you'll get used to this kind of a function. And there is also this other function, get server side props, and the main difference is that getStaticProps is used to build the page at build time, and get server side props is used to build the page at request time. So this is good for a bit dynamic data, and then this one is good for less dynamic data like a blog. So now what I'll do is that I'll just remove this h2, and then we can replace it with a div. And now right here we can map through the data, and I'll say posts dot map, and I'll invoke that. I'll pass an arrow function in here, and right here we'll get a single post at a time, and also we can access the index. And now right here what I will return is a card for each post. So first of all, let's create a card component. So I'll come to components, I'll add a new file, and I'll call it post card. post.jsx, and I'll use sfc to generate a React component, post card, and all I'll do for now is to return some JSX, and I'll say card. Okay, I keep misspelling, but it doesn't matter. I'll replace that. So I'll save that, and then in index.js, I can say post card, and it will be auto imported from the components, and I can self close it. Now I can pass this post via props to post card. So I'll say post is equals to post, and then I can pass a key, and for the key I'll make use of the index. So I'll save that. Now in post card, we can be able to receive our post via props. So I'll say post, and then I can log that post to the console. So actually I'll do it right here. I'll say console.log of post. So let's save that, and then let me remove this console.log right here, and then let's save, so that we can inspect a single post and actually see if we are loading our component before we proceed. So I'll come to the browser, let me refresh, and now when I refresh, you can see we are having two cards, card and card. And then right here, what we are having is each of the post, and now we have the fields, and at the fields is where we have the data. So we have our content, we have the slug, we have the summary, thumbnail, and title. So the card will only be the summary of the post, and then when we click on the card, we can get to more details about that particular post. So what I will display for now is maybe the title, the thumbnail, and also the summary. And then I'll make use of the slug, so that when you click on the card, it takes you to more details about that post. And the slug right here will be our unique ID. So let's go ahead and create our post card, and also include the data and also add the styles. So first of all, I can destructure the details from the post, like the details for a specific post right here. So I can say ret const title, and then I'll destructure the slug, I'll destructure summary, and also I will destructure thumbnail, and all this will come from post.fields. And now I can be able to make use of all of this inside our card right here. So the first thing that I'll do, I'll make this one to be a div, and I'll give it a class name of post-card. And then now in here, I'll remove this, and our card should be clickable. Okay, so I'll wrap everything with a link. So I'll say link, and this will come from next, and we should have a href, and this link should take us to more details about our post. So I'll use a backtick, and I'll say post, and then stroke. I will use the money sign, use the curly brackets, and I'll include the slug right here. So this slug, and then we will have a closing one like that. So let me save. So what will happen is that these will link to more details about our post, and we already have this route, post and then the slug. So if you come to pages, you will see that we have the post, and then inside the post we have this slug.js, and this is for our dynamic routes. Okay, so we already created this before. So I'll come to post card again, and now we can include the summary of our post right here. So first of all, I'll have a div, and for this div, I can give it a class name. So I'll say class name of details, and it will have two sections where we have the text info and we have the thumbnail. So right here we will divide it into two. So we'll have another div. This will be for the text information, and then now down here I'll also have another div. This will be for the thumbnail, and I can give class names to them so that we will style them later. So class name for this one will be info, and then I can give this one a class name, and class name for this one will be thumbnail. And let's start with info. So for info, let's have a h2, and we will display the post title. So I'll say title, and then after the title we can have a paragraph, and for the paragraph we can display the summary, just like that. And then another thing is that we can also show the date. So right here I can also have another p tag, and for this one I can give it a class name of date. Let me first rename this correctly, thumbnail. Let me save and then show you how we can access the date. So let me log it here again, console.log of post. I will save. I'll come back, and now you can see we are already listing two of them, this one and this one. And when you click on any of this one, it takes you to more details about it, and we'll be like creating this page on the next episode. For now, I want us to complete listing them. Now when I come here and explore this one, go to a single post, how you can find the date is that post.sys, and then inside the sys we have created art and then updated art. So we have these dates right here. So these are the ones that we need to access. So what I will do right here is that we need to make use of moment to format the date. So we can go ahead and install moment and then run npm I moment, and then I'll hit enter. As that installs, we can import it right here. So I will import moment from moment, and I can use it to format the date. So I'll use curly brackets, and then I'll say moment, moment. I'll invoke it, and I'll pass our date, which is in post.sys, and then dot created art, and then after that one I'll include dot from now and invoke that. So this is like a method provided by moment from now, and that will format our date correctly. And yeah, so I'll save that. Let's make sure that it's working. And now you can see 2 days ago. So I'll come back, and now we can include the thumbnail. So after this one, that is after the info, we can include the thumbnail. Actually, I included this at the wrong place, so I'll cut it and paste it here. So this is the point where we are supposed to include the thumbnail. So the thumbnail is optional. So what I will do, I'll make sure that it first exists, and then we display it if it exists. If it doesn't, we show null. So I'll say let's have the thumbnail. I'll use this ternary operator or a question mark. So if this returns true, then we will be able to show our thumbnail right here. Else, we will show nothing. So what we will do, we'll make use of the image, which is a component from Next. It helps with optimizing the image out of the box. So make sure you import it. And then now in here, actually it should be like a single component, a self-closing one, that is, and then we can include different properties for this one. So actually I'll hit enter and I can list them right here. So we should have the source to be equal to, now first of all let's explore the source, how it looks like. So if you come to fields, then go to thumbnail, you'll see now that the thumbnail is more detailed. It has fields again, and then at fields it has the file, at file it has the URL, and you'll see the URL doesn't have the HTTP, so we should add the HTTP and then combine with the URL. So how we will handle that is that we will start with HTTPS and then full colon, and then after that we'll add our thumbnail dot fields and then dot file and then dot URL, and that will now include the correct link to the image. This image component also expects us to pass the width and the height of the image. So what I will do, first of all, I don't want to use a specific height or width of the image. I want it to be a bit responsive. So first of all, I'll include layout to be responsive. So this is necessary when using this image component and you want to make it a bit responsive. You don't want to use exact height and width. And then I'll say object fit to be contain, and then right here I'll set the width now to be 100% and the height to be 100% as well. So now our image will be a bit responsive, and this is how we can add that image. But now this will still throw an error. So let me save and let's see what error we get. So you'll see host name, this one, is not configured under images in your next config. So we must add some configuration and add the source of this image. So as you can see, the source of this image is from this particular URL. So we should add this at next config. Okay. So I'll copy this and then I'll come to next config right here, and we should add that image configuration right here so that it actually like accepts images from that domain name. So right here, this is how we can do it. We'll say images and then I'll say full colon. Right here I'll say domains and then I'll say full colon and then include an array of URLs. You can include multiple. So what I'll include is this one. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and save. Now we should restart the server for it to identify this change. So I'll come back right here, stop the server. Actually, you can see right here, found a change in next config, restart the server to see the changes. So I'll stop it using Control-C, hit Y for yes, and then I'll run the server again. Now it's running, so it has successfully compiled, and we can be able to now load our data here and also the image here. So you can see the image the way it's big right here. So the good thing is that we are loading it and we can now add styles using styled JSX. So now we have added the data and all we need to do is to style using CSS. So I'll go ahead and style. Okay, so after the link here, I'll include the style tag and I'll say JSX, and then we can include the curly brackets and backtick and include the styles in here. So first things first, we have postcard right here. We can go ahead and select it. So I'll say dot post hyphen card, and what we will have here is we can change the background, and I'll use these values RGBA 243, 244, and 246, and an opacity of 1. So that is like a bit grayish. And then I'll add padding of 9px and 20px. So that is top and bottom and left, right. And then I'll add margin for each card at the bottom of 30px and let's cursor b pointer, and finally I'll add a border radius to this one of 7px. Okay, now let's select the details. So the details is the one that is having the info and the thumbnail, so we should like use some flexbox there to position them nicely. So right here I'll select details. I will add a display of flex, justify content of space between, and I'll align the items to the center. So that's it for details. Now let's select the info. So I want info to occupy more space. So what I'll do, I'll say dot info, and I'll flex the item by 2, so that will occupy more space than the image one. And I'll add a padding hyphen right of 7px, so that there is actually some space between the info and the thumbnail. So let's select the thumbnail now here. So I'll come here and select the thumbnail, and what I'll do right here, I'll just add a flex of 1, so that these actually make sense. Okay, so one last thing to style is the date. So I'll select the date, and let's give it this color. So I'll set the color to a hash b2 b1 b1 and b9, and we'll give it a font hyphen weight of bold. And now these are the styles, and let's see what we have done. I have saved, so I'll go back here, and there we go. The styles are working perfectly. Okay, and now see, we can be able to list our blog post. So we have the details here, the title, the summary, the date, the image on the side. Pretty nice, right? And when you click on this one, you get to more details about it. So that is it for this video. It's a bit long, and in the next video we'll go ahead and fetch the data for each post, and we will also look at some other concept of generating the paths at build time. So I'll see you on the next episode, and if you like my content, please make sure you support my channel by subscribing and also leaving a like, and I'll see you on the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to list our various blog posts right here, and also we made these cards clickable. So when you click, you can go to more details about that specific blog post. So now in this episode, I want us to work on this page where we get the data of a specific blog post, and we are able to show the content right here. So for us to do that, we will need to export two functions. The first one is getStaticPaths, and the other one is getStaticProps. Now we need getStaticPaths to get all the paths for all the pages, so that getStaticProps can be able to fetch data for all those pages at build time. And when we come to the documentation right here, you'll see that if a page has a dynamic routes and uses getStaticProps, it needs to define a list of paths to be statically generated. So getStaticProps makes use of those paths to generate the pages at build time. So when you export a function called getStaticPaths from the page that uses dynamic routes, Next.js will statically pre-render all the paths specified by getStaticPaths. And we need to create a function like this one. And you only make use of getStaticPaths when you are using getStaticProps, and you cannot use it with the get server-side props. And the reason is because get server-side props usually renders the page at request time. So when you visit the page, that is the time when it will know the path, that is the time when it will like fetch the data. But with getStaticProps, we need to know all the paths even before we deploy our application. So let's go ahead and like copy this function. So what this does, it only returns an array of paths. So this is an array, and inside this array we have this params object, and for this particular object we will be having our unique identifier, which is the shrug, and we'll also be having its value right here. Okay, so this is what we need to return right here. So for us to know the value of the shrug, we'll need to fetch data from Contentful. So we can go ahead and create a client in our shrug.js right here. So I'll import create client, and then we'll make use of this one right here to connect to Contentful. So I'll go ahead and copy that and I'll paste it out here. So I'll say connect to Contentful. And now right here I can paste that connection right here because we'll need to make use of it in this particular function and also in our getStaticProps function. So let's go ahead and fetch the data right here. So how we will fetch the data, we'll just call client.getEntries and then content type blog. So I'll just copy this line and I'll go ahead and paste it here. And then we need to generate the paths from our response. So this is how we will do it. Right here I'll say const paths will be equal to, we will make use of the map method so that we return an array of objects like this one. So we'll be having like multiple objects depending on the number of blog posts that we have. In this case we have 2 blog posts, so we'll be having 2 objects like this. So we'll be having objects like these ones, and each of the object will be having a slug and a specific value for a specific blog post. So we need to make use of the map method so that we can return an array of such objects. So right here I'll say response dot items dot map, and we will get an item at a time, and we will be able to return something right here. We will return an object, and this object is this one right here actually. So I'll just go ahead and copy this params object and paste it here. Okay, I kind of messed up. We should like return it directly. So I remove this and remove that. So we return params object like this. Now we have the value of the slug from the item. So we can now remove this one and include item dot fields dot slug. So this will return an array of params with the slug for each of the blog posts. So we can go ahead and log these paths right here. So I'll say console.log of paths. And then another thing that we need to do is to set fallback here to false for now. Later on we'll change it. So this means that if a path does not exist, then it will return a 404 page. So far so good. We are able to like fetch the data, generate the paths right here, and we can now set the paths, replace these paths with this one, because this will return an array like this. Okay, it will like be a similar thing. So right here, instead of using paths this way, I can just return paths. Okay, so I'll save that, and this will throw an error because the moment you make use of getStaticPaths, you must make use of getStaticProps as well. And let's see if we actually like get an error. So if I come here and try to refresh, you will see getStaticPaths was added without getStaticProps. So let's go ahead and create our getStaticProps function. And what I'll do, I'll just copy this one. So I'll copy that and I'll come right here and paste it here. And we already like have the client at the top here. So I will remove this one. And then we fetch the data again now. And now here we will make use of the params that we generate. Okay, so these params that we are generating, we can be able to access it here like these params. And now we'll be able to have access to the slug for each of the pages dynamically. So right here we can be able to filter the data using the shrug, and this is how you can do it. So with these get entries, you can be able to filter the data that you are receiving using the field. So right here I can say fields, and you can say the field that you want to filter the data using. So right now we want to use the shrug because it's our unique identifier, and we also have its value in our params. The value will be params dot shrug. So let me save auto format. So this is like the syntax. We have the content type, and then we are filtering the data using the shrug like this. Okay, so this is contentful syntax now. And then what we will return right here is res.items, and what this will return is that it will return an array still, but it will now return only one item because this shrug is a unique identifier. So it will only return one item, and we can access that one item using the square brackets and access the first item, which will be now our blog post. Okay, and now right here, instead of posts, it will return only one post. And now at the top here, we can be able to access the post via props, and we can log it to the console. So let's go ahead and console.log our post. So let's see what we have first, see if we can log the paths to the console, and also whether we can log the post to the console, and then we will do a quick recap so that hopefully it makes more sense. So I'll go ahead and open the browser, and now we no longer see the error if I refresh. And if I hit F12 to open the console, we should be seeing our post object right here. And you can see we are at Next.js tutorial part 2. Next.js tutorial part 2. When we go to our console, the terminal that is, you'll see that we are able to generate the paths like this. It's params, and then the shrug, and then the value of the shrug, and then another one, the shrug, and then the value of the shrug. And what Next.js does is that at build time, it will use these parameters to generate all the pages using these paths. Okay, so what you need to do for you to generate these dynamic pages, you need to make use of getStaticPaths like this, and then you fetch the data and you generate all the paths that you'll need for all the pages, and you return the paths right here. Okay, and once you set the fallback to false here, if the path does not exist and you try to visit it, then it will return 404. And then you make use of getStaticProps to now generate the pages. So you fetch the data for each page, now making use of the paths. So you have access to params, and you can say params.shrug or params.id, so that you fetch the data for a specific page, and you return that page via props, so that you can now fill your JSX using the correct data. So yeah, that is it for this particular video, and in the next video we'll go ahead and now work on our JSX so that we can try to display all the content for our blog post. So I'll see you on the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to get data for our dynamic routes and logged it to the console. And in this episode, I want us to take this data and be able to display it on the UI. Now, when we explore the kind of data that we have here, you'll see that we have different kind of data. We have a summary, shrug, and this is just a string which we can show directly on the UI. We have the image, and then we have the content. Now for the content, it looks kind of different because this is rich text and it's being displayed in a different format, where you will see that it is displayed in form of arrays here, and the first array is a paragraph, the node type, and then the content is also displayed in an array. So we'll have to find a way of displaying this data correctly on our UI, and Contentful provides us with a library. So first of all, we are going to install that library. So what I'll do, I'll just go to the text editor and I'll open a new terminal, and let's install a library which will help us to display the rich text content. Okay, so right here I'll say npm I, and right here we'll say at Contentful, and then stroke rich hyphen text hyphen react hyphen renderer, and this is an npm library which is provided by Contentful for us to be able to display that rich text content. And then I also need us to install other two libraries. The first one will be a library that will help us to display the embedded content. So that includes the code block and embedded images inside the rich text content. So I'm going to install it Contentful stroke rich hyphen text hyphen types, and then I'll also install React Highlight, and this will help us to use Highlight.js for us to include awesome highlights on our code block. So there we go, 3 libraries. The first one will help us to display the rich text content. The next one will help us to show the embedded assets, and then this one will help us to style our code blocks inside the rich text content. So I'll go ahead and install those, and then let's continue right here. So what we have currently is just a React fragment with a heading. So what I'll do, I'll just remove the heading, and I'll change this one into a div, and I'll give it a class name of blog content. And then in here we can add a back button. So I'll include a button, and I'll say back, and right here I can give it a class name. So I'll say class name of back hyphen btn, and we will have an on-click event. So I'll add an on-click event to this button, and what we'll make use of is the router right here, which we were already getting from the use router hook. So I want to be making use of this struct, so I'll remove that one, and now right here I'll call an arrow function, and it will call router dot back, and then I'll just invoke that. So when we click that particular back button, it will take us back to the list of our blogs. So after this, I'll add another tag here, and I'll call it article. Now this is for the content, so I'll say article, and the first thing that we will display is the thumbnail. So for the thumbnail, I can just come to index.js and postcard, that is where we were displaying a thumbnail as well. So I'll go ahead and copy this one, and I'll come right here and I'll paste it here. Now we need to destructure the properties from our post, so let's do that. So right here I'll destructure the title, I'll destructure the summary, I will also destructure content, and I'll destructure the thumbnail, and I'll set this to be equal to our post dot fields. And then now down here at the image, so this will be the URL, but I'll change the width and the height right here. So I'll go ahead and remove the responsiveness, and when we inspect the image at our browser, so the thumbnail right here will have fields, and then inside the fields we will have the file, and inside the file we will have the details, and inside the details we'll have image, and right here is where we have the height and the width of the image. So we need to access this. Okay, so it's a long way to go, but let's do that. So right here we will have the width as this thumbnail, and then dot fields, and then dot file, and let me first copy that and paste it here. And then after the file we will have details, and then after details we will have the image, and then we will have the width. And then I'll copy this one and paste it here, and I'll replace the width with the height. So that is the thumbnail that we are displaying at the top of our article. I'll go ahead and save just to auto format, and then after the thumbnail I can include a header tag right here, and for this header tag I'll include a h1, and for the h1 we can include the title. So right here I'll have the title, and then we will have the summary after the title. So I'll include a p tag and I'll include a summary, and then after that, now it's the rich text content. So first of all, let me fix this. So after this is the rich text content, and what I can do after the header, I can include a section tag. I'll give it a class name of article, or you can give it any other. And right here is where I want us to display the rich text content. So we can't directly display it like we did right here, and that is the reason why we installed some libraries. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll import something from Contentful now. So I'll say import, and I'll import what we call a document to React components, and these will come from our at Contentful, and then a stroke rich hyphen text hyphen React. I don't know why I'm not getting a suggestion that I have to type all this. So I'll make sure that they were actually installed correctly, and we actually have errors, so they were not installed. So it failed to install React highlight for some reason, so I misspelled it. Let me go ahead and redo this. I don't know what just happened, so I'll change this one to highlight. I'll make sure yours is correct, and I'll go ahead and install it. So as that installs, I'm importing document to React components, and now I can make use of this to format the rich text content. So I'll copy that, and down here where we are displaying the article, I'll make use of that, and I'll go ahead and invoke it and pass our content in here. So we destructured content, so I'll pass it in here, and I'll make sure that they are installed because we might still have some issues. So added 4 packages, so they were successfully installed now. Okay, cool. So now we are able to import this and be able to format our content using it. So far so good, and let's see if we can be able to see our data. I'll save that, and I'll go back to our app here, and failed to construct image. So image is not showing up, but what I'll do, I'll make sure that I import that component, import image from next stroke image. So I'll go ahead and save, and let's see what we have. Okay, there we go. So now we have the back button here. It's supposed to be an image. It's taking time to load, and then now down here we have our content, and you can see now the rich context is showing up, and this is now so cool. Now I can go ahead and style this, and then I'll show you the issues that we have with embedded assets, and we'll try to resolve them. So let's go ahead and style what we have at the moment. So before closing the div, I'll include the style tag right here, and I'll give it the JSX attribute, and we use some curly brackets and backticks, and now we can write our styles right here. So the first thing that I'll do, I'll select the blog hyphen content, and I'll give it a background of RGBA, and I'll use these values 243, 244, 246, and 1, and then I'll give it a padding of 20px, and I will give it a border radius of about 7px. Let's go ahead and select our back hyphen btn, and I can save this to auto format so that it's more readable. Now we will have several styles for this one, so I'll start by including a cursor or pointer, and then we will have an outline of none. I will remove the border. I'll set the background to be black, and let's give it a padding of 7px and 12px, and then let's have a color of white and margin to the bottom of 2rem. And lastly, I'll select the thumbnail and we will give it some margin top and bottom of 20px and 0. So I'll go ahead and save, and hopefully I haven't misspelled anything. Let's see what we have. And this is what we have. So we have some spacing now between the thumbnail and the image. We have a back button nicely styled, so pretty nice. Now let's try to add an embedded asset in our rich text content. So inside the Contentful, we can go ahead and select one of these one. I'll go with a Next.js tutorial, and once I scroll down here at our rich text content, we can be able to add all this cool stuff. But the issue is that when we try to embed an image, so I'll come right here and add an asset. So I'll go ahead and select one of these. It doesn't matter which one, but the thing is we are embedding an image right here. Okay, I'll say for beginners to make sure that we made the change, and I'll go ahead and publish. So once we publish, I can come to Next.js right here, and I can do a refresh of the first one. Okay, I'll go to the list. The one that we changed is this one, so I'll click on this one, and once we get to more details about it, here is the image, the thumbnail that is, and then this is what we just added for beginners. But now down here we can see our embedded image. Now when you explore the object that you are getting right here, you'll come and see that we have this embedded asset block. Okay, and this embedded asset block is our image, which we are not being able to see it. So what we should do is that we can make use of another Contentful library, which we just installed actually, to be able to show those embedded assets. Okay, and right here I can go ahead and import something, and what I'll import is import, and I'll use curly brackets, I'll say blocks, and then now right here it's coming from the rich text types. Okay, and then we have a blog explaining this in Contentful. So if you search for contentful.com embedded, you'll see that there is this particular blog post right here, rendering linked assets and entries in the rich text field. So if you click on that, you'll see more information about this. I'll scroll down and you'll see it's explaining how you can embed videos, images, or even a blog post and code blocks. Okay, so we have all the information here, and I'll leave a link to this blog post at the description section below so that you can also explore it, because I don't want to explain everything that is happening here. And you can see also the type of data, how it's being arranged and stuff. And I'll scroll to where we are having the exact example of how to display our image and our code blocks. So we haven't added a code block yet, but we'll add it in a few. So what we are supposed to do is to import blocks from Contentful rich text types, and then we are supposed to include a render options, and these render options will be added at our document to React components as a second parameter. Okay, so here is the content, and then the second parameter is our render options. So what I want to do is to copy whatever we have here, and I'll go ahead and copy up to the render options. I'll copy that, I'll come back right here, and before our return statement, I can go ahead and paste it here. And let's explore what we have. So we have render option, and then we have render node. So this is the format that Contentful provides. You can go through it if you want to understand further. And right here we have inline entries that include blog posts, but we are not using this kind of entries right now. So I'll go ahead and remove this one. And then after that we have embedded entry, and these include the code block and also video embedded. So in our case, we'll be adding a code block in a few, but we are not going to add a video. So if you'll be adding videos, you can as well include it, but for now I'll just keep it simple, remove that. This is just to show you around. And then now we have this embedded asset, and this embedded asset is for the image. And how Contentful is knowing all this is because these are available in the properties of our fields or content. At our browser here, you'll see that we have these node types, embedded asset block. So Contentful is using this to determine whether it's block level, whether it's embedded asset, and so on. And we don't have to like worry about that. So in this case, this is embedded asset and its blocks. And right here, we are including the path of that particular image. So we don't need to do anything with this actually. So I'll go ahead and leave it the way it is. And why you have this option is so that you can be able to include some class names if you want to style this further. So you can go ahead and include a class name right here, but you wouldn't be able to do that by just displaying the rich content like this, because you don't have a way to like access the image directly. You are just displaying the content in general. But now why we have these options is so that you can be able to add class name to like this one and be able to style it accordingly, like we will be doing with our code block right here. So now I'll go ahead and save this, and then I'll include the render options right here as the second parameter of our document to React components right here. So I'll just paste it and save. Now when I come back right here, you'll see that now our image is loading, which is inside the rich text content, and it's embedded there. And it's actually so huge, so we can try to find a way of styling it. So what I'll do, we already have a class name of article right here. I'll go to the global styles, at our styles, click on this one, and I'll say dot article, and then img. And now right here, I can be able to include the width to be 100%, and I can include a border radius of about 7px. So I'll go ahead and save, and that should style that image inside the article. And now there you go, it's a bit smaller, but now the height is messed up. I'll come back to the shrug, and right here where we have the height, I'll actually remove this, and I'll set this one to be outer. So I'll save, and hopefully now the height is fixed, and there we go. So this looks much better. So now you can be able to embed different images and they'll show up in your content. Cool. Now if we come back to Contentful right here, you'll see that we have this for adding some code blocks. I'll come right here and I'll select this code, so it's kind of auto formatted and publish. And now it's just formatted the text. So this will be an issue to like style this in form of a code block. So I want to show you a way in which you can go about this one. So how you can do it, inside our Contentful, I will copy this actually. I'll just like cut it, and what I will do is that I'll go to content model, and I'll add a new content type. And now right here I can add code block, and you can add the description if you want. I'll just go ahead and create, and then we can go ahead and add a field. So we should be having a name to this one. So I'll go ahead and add text field, and I'll say this is the name of that code block. It can be short text. I'll create and configure, and let this represent the entry title. For validation, you can make it to be required and also to be unique, and appearance single line. So I'll go ahead and confirm, and then I'll add another field, and this one now will be text again. It will be long text. I can give it a name of the code content, and I'll go ahead, create and configure the settings. We can go to validation, let it be required, and then the appearance, let it be markdown, and I'll confirm. And then I'll go ahead and save. And now what you can do, you can be using this content model to be adding your code blocks. Okay, so inside the content, you can add the content for the code block, that is the content type. So right here you can select code block, and you can come here, add code block to this one, and you'll give your code block a name. For example, you can include, let's say, get static props. So this is a code block for get static props, and then right here now you can like paste that code. So what I'll do, I'll come to this one and I'll copy a function for get static props. I'll copy this one and I'll paste it here, and I'll go ahead and publish. Okay, so what have we done? We have created a content model for the code block. So this, you can be using it for the different code blocks which you want, and then we have added content for that particular code block. So we have added one of them, so you can filter right here which one you want, and now we can be able to embed this code block inside our blog. So let's try that. So I'll come to Next.js, and now instead of including the low text that we were typing here, we can go ahead and add an entry right here, and it will be this one, not inline, this one. And now right here I can go to code block, you can filter and you select the one that you want, get static props, and it's embedded right there. And I'll go ahead and publish. Now when we do this and come right here and refresh, let's see what we have so far. So you'll see that we are seeing nothing right here. So we need to go to our code and fix that. So at our code, we were able to do this, like we remained with this one. So this is an embedded entry. Our code block is an embedded entry. And what we should change is this one right here. And that is the name of the field. Okay, so for our case, we included it as code content. So I'll go ahead and save, and now right here we should be able to see something like this. So now we have our code right here. Now the cool thing of including it as an embedded entry is that we can now be able to style this separately, which will be tricky if we just like used this. Okay, so there's no way to just like access that particular code block and style it, but when we use the render options, we can be able to style it right here. And I'll make use of highlight.js to style this one. So right here I'll go ahead and import highlight, and this will come from React highlight. So this is highlight.js, a library that is used to like format code blocks and to include different styles. So we also need to import the CSS for this, or a theme for this one. So let me show you how you can do that. If you come to node modules and then you go to highlight.js, they are alphabetically arranged, so you can scroll up to H. Why is H? Let me scroll nicely. Here we have H. Now we have highlight.js right here, and then when you expand that, you'll have styles. Inside the styles, you'll have all these CSS styles, all these CSS files, and all these CSS files are different themes that you can choose. And in this case, I'm going to try the first one right here. So how can you import this one? Importing this one is so easy in Next.js. So you can go ahead and say import, and I'll use this one at the quotes, and I'll say highlight. Now this is the name of the folder, this one right here inside the node modules. So I'll say highlight and .js, that is the name of the folder. And then stroke, we go to styles, and then stroke. Now right here you can include the name of CSS file that you want to use, and all these are different themes that you can make use of. So I'll say A, and then 11, and Y hyphen dark and then .css. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now down here, I can make use of this highlight to wrap our content right here. So right here, I'll say highlight, and I'll cut that and paste it down here. And another cool thing is that we can specify the language using class name. So I'll say class name, and our language is JavaScript. So I'll go ahead and save, and hopefully we have like styled it. Okay, so I'll come to this one, and failed to compile. So I messed the spelling again, so I'll go ahead and fix it. I'll save, refresh, and now down here, there we go. We are able to display our code block with a nice style. Now all you will be doing is to add the code blocks inside the this particular content model code block. Okay, and then you'll be able to like display them nicely. So now you can like try these other themes right here. Let me try this one, ata.css, and see how it looks like. So I'll say ata.css, and then I'll come back. Let's see what it looks like. It looks like this. Pretty awesome still. And that's it for this video. So it was a bit long, but the reason is for the embedded assets and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty cool. And that is how you can display the content of your blog. And this video was more about Contentful than Next.js, but in the next video we are going ahead and deploy this application, and I'll be showing you something else called Incremental Static Regeneration. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. So in the last episode, we were able to display more details about a blog post. So we showed the thumbnail, the content here, and the rich text content together with the embedded assets such as images and also code blocks. And in this episode, I want us to go ahead and deploy this application to Vercel, and then we will cover a concept called incremental static regeneration, which allows Next.js to rebuild the page when we have already deployed the site. So for now, we'll not be able to update the changes live until we like redeploy the application. So for you to see what problem we are having, we'll have to deploy the site first, and then we'll cover incremental static regeneration to solve the issue that we'll be having. So let's deploy the application and see what issues that we are having. So I'll go ahead and first of all create a GitHub repository for this, and I'll call it a next contentful blog. So NCB, just a short form. And then I'll go ahead and make this to be a private repo and create the repo. And the first thing that I need to do is to commit my changes, and then I'll add the main branch, add the remote, and then push the changes. So I'll come to VS Code, open the terminal, and I'll do everything right here. So I'll go ahead and git add all files, and then I'll git commit -m, and I'll say initial commit, and I'll hit enter, and then I will now add the remote. So I'll come to the browser, and I'll create the main branch first. So I'll git branch -m main, and then I'll add the remote. So I'll copy this one and I'll paste it there, and then we will push the changes. So I'll copy that one and paste it there. So I'll hit enter. So I'll wait for this to process, and there we go. So I'll come back and refresh, And now we have our files here. Pretty nice. Now the next thing that you might want to do is to go to Vercel, and if I go to home here, you will see I have 2 projects and I can be able to add a new project. So when creating Vercel, you can like connect to GitHub and so on, and you can see I have already like connected to GitHub right here. So I'll go ahead and import a project right here from GitHub. Okay, so I'll go ahead and import ncb, and then now down here I'll need to enter the environment variables. So I'll go back to the code and I'll go to actually I'll minimize everything here, and also let me minimize this one like this. Go to .env. I'll select the name of this environment variable. I'll copy that and I'll enter the name there, then the value. So I'll copy that and enter the name here. Then I'll go ahead and add, and then we have added one down here, so I need to add the other one. So I will copy this one, access token, and then I'll add it there, and then I'll come right here, I'll copy that and I'll add it there, and then I'll add. Now we have added, and I'll go ahead and deploy. So deployment queued, it's building. So the project has been deployed, and I can go ahead and visit it. So I can click on this one, and now you'll see that we have this project and now it's live. Pretty awesome. And when I click on this one, I can be able to load everything, and everything is loading very fast. Now all this is static. We are not like making a request to fetch the data and so on. All the pages were pre-built during deployment. So now the issue that we have is that when we go to Contentful and update this data, we won't see the changes unless we like redeploy this particular application. So let's do that and see it in action. So I'll go ahead and go to Contentful and sign in. So once I'm here, I'll go ahead and click Next.js, and right here I'll say Next.js tutorial for beginners, and then let me change the content down here. This is the content of Next.js tutorial for beginners. So I'll just remove for beginners so that it's just tutorial. Okay, so we switch them up, just a retro change to show you the effect that we have. So I'll go ahead and publish. Now, since we have made the changes, if we come to our live site, which is on Vercel right here, and we hit refresh, you'll see that Next.js tutorial for beginners doesn't appear here. And when we click on it, this one does not change as well. But on our localhost, since when we refresh, it will like rebuild the application, we will see the changes. So this is on localhost. So if I refresh this one, you'll see that we'll have Next.js tutorial for beginners since it rebuilt the application. Okay, and when we click on this one is updated. So for beginners is like removed. So the problem that we have is that when we deploy our application, unless we like redeploy this application again, we won't be able to see our changes, and that is kind of a bad experience. So Next.js tries to solve this with a concept called incremental static regeneration. And what incremental static regeneration does is that it will be able to rebuild the page once we visit it for like the first time or after a period of time, and then future visitors will be able to see the already rebuilt page. Okay, and then another issue that is there is that for example, when we add a new entry, in this case we just updated, so let's try to add a new entry. So I'll go ahead and add a blog. So this is a new entry. If I go ahead and publish new entry, we won't be seeing this either. Okay, so if we try to refresh, nothing. Okay, only the old one until you redeploy the application. But on localhost, if you refresh this page, yeah, you'll see that it's being rebuilt and therefore it's there. So let's implement the incremental static regeneration, and it's actually easy to implement this one. So if you come down here, you'll see that what we need to do is to add a revalidate. This we are adding it to getStaticProps. Okay, we add the revalidate prop to getStaticProps, and now down here you'll see after our props here we will be able to add revalidate, and we give it a time period. So Next.js will attempt to regenerate the page when a request comes in, at most once every 10 seconds. And then another thing that we will do, we will set right here fallback to blocking. You can either set this to blocking or true. And when you set it to true, you'll need to do some other configuration, because fallback to true means that you have to show a fallback page where you can maybe show a loader or something. So I'll just copy revalidate right here, and then I'll go to the code, go to Slug, and then now down here where we were fetching the data, right here after props we will add revalidate. And since we want to see these changes happen very fast, I'll set this one to 1 second for the tutorial purpose. Okay, but if the data doesn't change too much, you can even set it to 30 seconds. And then now down here I'll set fallback to blocking. So I'll copy blocking, and I'll come where we have fallback and change from false to blocking. So this will give our server time to generate the path, and then fetch the data here, and we will be able now to see the page. So let's do these two changes and save, and then I'll go ahead and push these changes to GitHub. So I'll come here, I'll say git add all, and then I'll git commit -m, and I'll say incremental static regeneration, and then I'll git push. And now when I go to Vercel right here, I'll go to dashboard, NCB here, and it's building, upcoming building right here just now. So it will automatically trigger that rebuild. I'll go to deployments here to see what is happening. I think this has already been built. So let's see if it's loading the page. I'll visit, and once I visit, now this is the rebuild page. So you can see the new entry right here. So find a way to navigate to the already built page. So you can go to the home right here, then you can go to your project, and then you can go to deployments and go with the one that has the current push and visit that particular link. Okay, so if you visit the previous one, you might not see the correct changes. So visit the current one, and once you do that, you'll be able to see the changes live. Now there we go, pretty nice. Now let's try to update this. So I'll go ahead and so I'll say new next.js entry, and then test content for next.js. So I'll go ahead and save, I'll publish, and then when we come to our Chaoo blog, now we refresh the first time, we won't see the changes. Now we have made the request. Next.js on the background will refetch the data and rebuild the page, so that when the next user visit this page, they'll be able to see the changes. So when I refresh again, we should be able to see the changes, and we don't. So right here, we didn't include the revalidate for the list of our blog post. But when we click on this one, we made the changes only on the Strag, and that is why we can be able to see the changes right here. So this is working, but we didn't remember to do a revalidate of our home page. So you also need to do the same on the home page here, where we were fetching the data as well. So since here we don't have the paths and stuff, we only need to include the revalidate. So I'll go ahead and fix that real quick. So I'll fix it and then push the changes, and then we can test it. So let me try to do this a bit fast. So after the props here in index.js, add revalidate, and I'll set it to 1. Also make sure that you have added it after the curly brackets here, and then push the changes to GitHub so that Vercel can redeploy the application. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I have pushed the changes. Now when I go to Vercel right here, go to I want to go to deployment. I'll go back to the home, go to my app here, and then go to deployments. You'll see that this is now ready, and I called it ISR3. So I previously made this ISR2 and made a mess, so I had to repeat the process. So this is the correct one that I made the change for. And now when you visit this page and then visit the page, so I'll close this one so that we have this new one, and you'll see this is the current data that we have. New Next.js and Contentful entry. Now if we go ahead and update that, so I had added this Contentful as a trial. So I don't know what I should change. I should change this and to maybe this one, just a simple change, and then I'll do the same at the content. So I'll change it to the symbol, and I'll go ahead and publish the changes. Okay, so the changes are published. Now when I go to the blog, you'll notice that this is and here, and when I refresh the page, you'll not see the change initially, because what will happen is that we have made request to rebuild the page, and then after it has rebuilt the pages using the new data, then new visitors will be able to see the new changes. So when I refresh this again, we should now be able to see the new changes. So I'll refresh again, and there we go. Now we have end there, and now when we visit this, you will see that we have the end here. Pretty cool. And that is incremental static regeneration in action, very easy to implement. And if you add a new data or new entry, let's try to do that. So I'll go ahead and add right here pretty fast, and I'll say another one like DJ Khaled, and then I'll go to the summary. I'll say another one. I'll just include another one to all of them. Another one content, just to show you. Okay, nothing serious here. And let's also add a thumbnail to spice it up. I'll add an existing one, introduction, publish. So I'll go ahead and go back to our blog right here. Now if we refresh the first time, we won't see it. The second time we will see it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and refresh. The first time we don't see it, the second time we should see it. So there we go, another one. And once we visit, we get it right here. And why we are getting these is because we were able to also add a fallback here to blocking, because it will wait for the page to rebuild the paths and also fetch the data. If this was false, we would see a 404 page because the path will not be there. So that is incremental static regeneration in action. And amazingly, we have come to the end of this course. We have covered the main concepts that exist in Next.js. So if I come to a Next.js documentation right here, we check at the side here, getting started, we will see at basic features, we have covered most of these concepts. Get server-side props, get static paths, get static props, incremental static regeneration, and then we have client side. So client side we didn't do because this is the normal way you fetch data in React, but you can go through it and see what Next.js provides. We saw how we can style our CSS, built-in CSS support. We built a layout. We did image optimization. We didn't cover fonts, but that is something you can go through. First refresh, this is something that we don't need to worry about. ESLint, we don't need to worry about. If you are using TypeScript, you can go through this one. We covered environment variables, and you can see all these basic features that are here. We have covered like 99% of them, which is really cool. We also covered routing, the pages, dynamic routes, and we didn't cover API routes. This is like building API routes in Next.js. You can cover it, and in future I might be coming a tutorial on the same. And then when you go through this, some of these are just straightforward deploying, going to production. And another thing that you might want to cover is authentication in Next.js. So for now, I won't cover this one, but if this course get good viewership, I'll cover it also in future. So what I'm promising in future is authentication and API routes. I'm promising that in future, and maybe TypeScript, okay? But most of the other stuff, we have already covered them, the concepts that exist in Next.js. So this marks the end of this course, and I really hope you enjoyed. If you like the content, please remember to subscribe, turn on post notification for more awesome content just like this one. And I'll see you on the next course.